It's my very great honor to announce our first conference guest today, our distinguished guest of honor, Her Excellency Madeleine Albright, 64th Secretary of State of the United States of America, professor, author, businesswoman, diplomat. She was the first female Secretary of State and became, at that time, the highest ranking woman in the history of the US government. Dr. Madeleine Albright will be interviewed by Her Excellency Marina Kaljurand. I'm very curious to hear your views and your insights. Please go ahead.
Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Secretary, and good day to everybody who is watching us from Japan to US in different time zones. Dear Madeleine, it's always a great pleasure to see you and listen to you, and I'm really thrilled and honored to have today a discussion with you.
I'm delighted to join you. I really am, and to have the opportunity to spend time talking with you, Madam Minister, my good friend Marina. So we will have a good discussion. Thank you for inviting me.
Madeleine, we're living through challenging times. Besides COVID pandemic, there are other worrying developments. Yesterday, for example, the European Parliament adopted a very critical resolution on Russia's aggressive behavior. EU-Russia relations are at its lowest. US administration expelled Russian diplomats and Russia retaliated. Also, China is becoming more assertive, powerful, and vocal. Dear Madeleine, you are known for thinking out of the box, and you are known for bold ideas. What is your take on the present international situation, and more precisely on transatlantic relations? What is your advice to US and European leaders? Because needless to say, Europe was excited and happy after the last presidential elections. President Biden has a standing invitation to come to Brussels. We're waiting to see him here, and I know that he will do it soon.
Well, you have asked many questions that really show, I think the world is a mess. That's a diplomatic term of art. Things are bad. I really do think that if one looks at the various issues that are out there beyond the ones that you mentioned in terms of what Russia's doing, what China's doing, the challenge of climate change, obviously the COVID, but also that there are issues throughout the world in different countries. Every continent, there are some issues that need to be dealt with. And part of the issue, frankly, is also that we don't have the international institutions that are in many ways up to speed in terms of dealing with them. They need to be rejuvenated in some ways, and we need to decide which ones are the ones that really are operational. I do think that what has made a difference in the United States is the election of President Biden, who has a very different approach. And by the way, he's somebody that I know very well because we worked together when he was a senator and I was secretary, and we knew each other even before that. And he has a very broad understanding of international issues, I think, and frankly, probably more than any president we've had in a very long time, and a deep interest. And he understands, and it started with his inauguration speech, that America had to be back. America had to be a part of the system, and that we would re-enter the system with humility. And I think that that is the way he is approaching things. He gave a very interesting speech 2 nights ago, in Congress, in which he outlined a very different approach to the issues in the United States and that have to be dealt with. But at the same time, I think made clear to the American public, as he talked about the national security issues, how domestic and foreign policy go together, which I think is a very important part in a democracy. By the way, I think that one thing that I have been reading, the intelligence community, our intelligence community has just put out a document, Global Trends 2040. It's unclassified. And they have made very clear what the various issues are that have to be dealt with, some that are immediate, but some that are the longer term ones that need to be dealt with now. in a very specific way with partners, which leads me to one of the things you also asked. The transatlantic relationship is absolutely essential. And I think that it's something that was very important before, and as a result of what happened in World War II, but we now have to make clear that it is a crucial aspect of how we work and live together.
Thank you, Madeleine. You are known for being a very strong supporter of transatlantic ties. And it's really encouraging to hear from both sides of the Atlantic Ocean that there is interest, there is willingness, there is commitment to have new or to restore the work of NATO, to give more impetus to NATO, and to have closer transatlantic ties. So from Brussels, I can only say that we're looking forward to President Biden's visit to Brussels. But coming to another topic, I'm really happy and honored to be part of your group of exes. Well, those who don't know, that's the club or group of former foreign ministers. Madeleine, you keep us busy. You keep us busy about learning about new topics, discussing new topics. You keep us busy about thinking about the world today and making suggestions to the better world to come. So recently we had a series of presentations and discussions about cybersecurity. The pandemic has brought digital topics to the center of political attention. Everybody is discussing digital, everybody's going digital. But if we look from the perspective of cybersecurity, how do you see the biggest challenges for international community, but also for our transatlantic relations?
I think it is at the basis of what the future is bringing to us. And yet, I have to say, I think that even a lot of experts don't understand all the ramifications of it. And average people in countries do know that there's the internet of everything, and that their refrigerator talks to them, or that things are very automatic. But they don't see the other side of this. What do we learning? Who is in control? What do we know? And again, this particular report, this global trends, I think has a whole section on the impact of technology on our daily lives, and the importance of understanding, and especially, I think, issues to do with artificial intelligence, the whole issue of cyber, of whether cyber is a friend or an enemy. And it's very interesting because one of the things is that what has happened, as I mentioned, there is the Internet of Things, but it has actually also led to fragmentation in our societies because it exacerbates the divisions. And I think we need to know the social effect of all of this. And then the other part, if I may say, is that you are in Brussels and the EU makes rules, and we don't yet have norms that really govern how the cyber systems, how artificial intelligence works. And even though the transatlantic relationship is the most basic one in terms of values, we need to figure out how to use the systems to develop some norms that we understand what is really happening. But it has affected, it's affected our elections, it's affected how we see what the Russians are doing in Central and Eastern Europe to undermine democracy. It affects how the Chinese are operating. So it is a new, in some ways it's a gift, and in another way, it's kind of the genie out of the bottle, trying to figure out what we do with it. And therefore having these kinds of discussions, whether we have it among the former foreign ministers or we have it with people that are in power now, as you are in the parliament, and then also that the average people understand what is going on with this. It's a very, very big assignment.
Madeleine, I very much agree with your emphasis on international law norms, because we need clear understanding what are the rules of behavior in cyberspace. We've been saying that international law applies to cyber, but unfortunately we do not see that the whole world acts according to the words. Unfortunately, we see in the United Nations and internationally ideological division between different states. So how to continue discussion on multilateral level, multi-stakeholder level in these difficult circumstances?
Well, I think the hard part is that we do come at it differently. I mean, I have to say, democracies, we believe in free speech and freedom, and the opportunity to exchange information and to understand each other. The authoritarian governments are able to use this tool to control people and to undermine the way that we understand each other. And so developing those norms, and it's very hard in organizations where everybody is represented, but we need to understand this. And this is going to take a lot of effort in order to develop the norms. And the truth is, I always say this, I was born in Prague, and I just happen to have been raised in the United States. So I'm the example of the transatlantic relationship. And we disagree often. We disagree in terms of some of the rules on privacy, a number of ways that we do things, and yet we have more in common than any other group of people. And so I do think that we are going to have to take a leadership role in this. And you have, frankly, I think it's been remarkable. And also, you come from a country that has been really modern in many ways for a long time, in terms of being an e-country that really understands it. But you have also been the victim of attacks from the outside through this new tool. And so I think there's nobody better than a representative of Estonia to really be leading this discussion.
Madeleine, thank you for your kind remarks, but still, I'd say that we need different voices. We need people coming from very different backgrounds, and coming from the cybersecurity community. I'd say that we also need globally strong and committed US voice. When we talk about digital topics, when we talk about cybersecurity, we missed it. Yeah. Hopefully, it will be now back on international arena.
We'll be back. I have to say, there's a great desire to be back, and President Biden has made that clear. But what is also interesting is that there have been commissions that have been looking about what to do, something called the Solarium Commission, that had a set of recommendations about how to strengthen the internal structure of the US government in order to be able to deal with this, that it's not just the Defense Department, that it's really a whole of government. There has now been somebody who came to speak to our group last time, Chris Inglis, who's been named as the chief officer to really deal with this out of the White House. And there is going to be an approach of how to work this. The other part that makes this both interesting and complicated, it's not just governments, it's the private sector. And that relationship between the public and private sector is something that also is a challenge for you and for us, and how we do this. So the more we do together, the better.
I can completely agree with everything you said. Dear Madeleine, you know what day it was yesterday? It was the 29th of April. And Europe celebrated the Day of Solidarity between Generations. It was first introduced in 2012. And I have to say that it is becoming more and more popular among different generations. And I'm proud that I have at home 4 generations. My mother, 95, my grandson, 7 months old. So I have the privilege of living with different generations. Dear Madeleine, you are always known for being inspiring to all generations, to different generations, and especially to women in politics, to women in diplomacy, to women in cybersecurity. Madeleine, what would you like to say today to women, and maybe especially to young women who are watching you?
Well, I do think that we have been watching how there have been more women that have come into places in the political world and the business world and the educational world, scientific world. And I believe very strongly the most famous thing I ever said was that there's a special place in hell for women who don't support each other. We need to have more women in the room. It always helps. And when you became part of my group of former foreign ministers, we now have more of us there. But I also do think the cross-generational thing is so important, because I think it is accurate to say that the younger generation understands technology better than the others. And we have a very famous poet, Robert Frost, who said, "The older I am, the younger are my teachers." And that is the way I feel now about the younger generation, men and women, how they work together, and they really have a better sense of the technology. But I am delighted to see women. And by the way, there was a great picture. I talked about President Biden's speech to Congress. It was the first time in history, excuse me, that two women were sitting behind him. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and our Vice President, Kamala Harris. It is a big step forward. America always wants to be first in everything. We're not first in terms of women prime ministers and women presidents, but we are working on it, and we all have to work together. And the support that women give to each other, I think, is very, very important, which is why I love having you as part of my group.
Madeleine, thank you so much for your kind words. And the quote was excellent. I remember it, and I'll take it with me. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I hope that we'll be invited to a talk show on CNN or anywhere else where we can have more time to discuss all the interesting topics. But I'd like to thank you for being always available, for being open and frank, for your time you are dedicating to international affairs, to interesting topics, to cybersecurity, to women of all generations. Thank you so much for letting me to talk to you today, because I know that in the audience there are hundreds who would like to talk to you. Today I was privileged. Hopefully next time there will be anybody else. Dear Madeleine, thank you so much.
Dear Marina, thank you, and congratulations on everything you're doing and your leadership role across so many different subjects. All my best to you, and good luck, and we'll see each other soon, some way.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bring your insights to the public. Thank you, Her Excellency Madeleine Albright, and thank you also, Excellency Marina Kaljurand.